So this past month, I've been playing with one of the most expensive smartphones of 2025, the Sony Xperia 1 Mark VII, which costs a hernia-inducing 1,399 quid. And just the thought of all that money makes my testicles inadvertently leap up inside of my body, so they're nestled somewhere around my kidney region. So if you fancy yourself an Xperia 1 Mark VII, you'll likely need a steady supply of orphans for a swift bit of organ harvesting. Although at the time I shot this video, the Xperia 1 Mark VII was actually unavailable to buy in the UK, possibly down to some technical issues that have cropped up on a small number of devices, or possibly because it's proven surprisingly popular, who knows? Lots of reports of missing orphans lately. Now, I've had my SIM secreted in there for over a week now, so here's my in-depth Sony Xperia 1 Mark VII review. And there's plenty to like here, but there's also a few problems. Just one of them being the absolutely extortionate asking price. Oh, and full disclosure, I am proper grade A hungover today, so go easy on me. Now, design-wise, this Sony flagship is nothing particularly new or thrilling, recycling the same Gorilla Glass Victus and metal arrangement as last year's Mark VI. Although, gotta say, that absolutely filthy orchid purple model definitely gets the official spurt of approval. And sadly, I don't have that version. I've got the bog standard black, which isn't quite as trouser-rousing. And I've got to say, I'm also rather torn over the textured back end. This adds a bit of grip, which certainly helps if you regularly get the meat or the booze sweats, as I often do. Kind of got both of those going on right now. But personally, I think it makes the Xperia 1 Mark VII look and feel rather cheap, like it's made of plastic rather than glass. There's also quite a lightweight flagship smartphone coming in at just under 200 grams, and while it's not the most curvaceous of flagships, it's still quite comfortable to wield and to use thanks to that lightweight design. And those bezels above and below the screen are slightly chunkier compared with other smartphones, but on the flip side you get a full screen finish on the Xperia 1 Mark VII, as that selfie cam is stashed away in the top bezel. You've got Gorilla Glass Victus 2 for the screen, Gorilla Glass Victus 1 for the arse end, and the Xperia 1 Mark VII over this past couple of weeks has enjoyed a couple of wee drops, shall we say, and touch wood, still looking box fresh, which is certainly reassuring. You got full IP68 water and dust resistance, and can be fully submerged in the drink, no worries. And if any water is detected in the old USB port, well, that will just shut down so it can't be used. You get a wee message flashing up on screen, and then you get another one flashing up when all of the water is drained out and it's good to go again. Now, the Xperia 1 Mark VII sports an edge-mounted power button as usual with a built-in fingerprint sensor, sadly not always the most dependable. It's absolutely fine as long as your finger is dry and clean. As you can see, they're pretty responsive, fast to act. But if you've so much as gently fingered a hobnob recently, well, chances are the seemingly insignificant amount of biscuit debris on your digits will cause that sensor to flounder. And Sony still hasn't added any kind of face unlock action on here as well, which is slightly irritating every time that scanner does drop a bollock. And what you've got slapped here on the Sony Xperia 1 Mark VII is a mostly stock version of Android. It is Android 15, hopefully should be getting Android 16 soon, and Sony is guaranteeing 4 OS updates and 6 years of security patch and support. Which ain't the absolute best, and it is kind of a shame they're not offering at least 6 years of security patching given the bloody price of this thing, but hey-ho. And of course there are advantages and disadvantages to this stock setup. So for instance, as far as customization goes, it's rather limited. You've got like a couple of different clocks you can use for the lock screen and a singular, rather boring always on display. But on the flip side, everything is supremely smooth and responsive here on the Xperia 1 Mark VII, and there's practically no crapware bunged on it either. Just a couple of the regular offenders, good old Facebook and LinkedIn, which you can disable but not entirely remove, sadly. Not without a little bit of extra assistance anyhow. It is 256 gigs of storage as standard on the Xperia 1 Mark VII, which again you would expect at that price point, although some flagship manufacturers do take the piss and begin at 128 gigs. None of that shenanigans from Sony, and hallelujah, you do also still get micro SD memory card support with the Xperia 1 flagship, which is something you'll get from sod all other flagships out there. Now, of course, Sony used to really stand out with its 21:9 stretched 4K monster displays. Then that all changed for last year's Mark VI, and once again for the Mark VII you've got yourself another 6.5-inch OLED panel with a Full HD Plus resolution. And those visuals that this thing spaffs out are still perfectly crisp, even if this panel isn't technically quite as sharp as what you'll find on some other flagships. I certainly never find myself disappointed at the images I was seeing. And as mentioned before, you get a bloody gorgeous full view finish. There's absolutely sod all selfie cam orifice to intrude on the action when you do go full screen. And this panel is brighter compared with previous Xperia flagships, and it certainly does make a difference when you're outdoors on extremely sunny days. I had no issues with the visibility, although I did occasionally have to dial down the brightness at night time because it was just a little bit too powerful. And of course you can fiddle and tweak until this display's output suits you just fine. Got plenty of customization in the display settings, including the usual creator mode shenanigans, so you can consume your content just as the creator intended. And as the creator of this particular content, I insist that you consume several pints of your chosen booze, be it beer, wine or whiskey, and at the very least you'll be able to feel just as dreadful as I do right now. Oh, and you don't get full LTPO tech here on the Xperia 1 Mark VII. The refresh rate ranges from 30Hz up to 120Hz. Still silky smooth for all of your zipping about and your supported apps. Oh, and those front-facing speakers are, again, another highlight of the Xperia 1 Mark VII. You've got a pretty decent stereo effect spaffed out by them, and they absolutely do the job for watching video. Even in quite a noisy household, these super loud blasters will cut through that background guff, keep everything nice and clear. And the only thing is, you will need to prop the Xperia up using a proper phone stand, because if you merely lean it against something, those vibrations usually cause it to slip and fall. And likewise, you've got some pretty bloody powerful haptics stashed in here as well, so when this thing vibrates in your pocket, woof! And no, Sony hasn't scrapped the headphone jack either. Absolute legends. So you can enjoy a proper bit of high-res audio action when you do slap on your cans, and the Bluetooth streaming's been absolutely flawless from this thing as well. You've got the usual LDAC support, aptX adaptive, all the good stuff. As for the performance, well, that is full-on flagship style, just as you'd hope, with Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Elite in charge. So yes, gaming on the Xperia 1 Mark VII is an absolutely exceptional experience. Wuthering and Waves and other really intense titles play with a flawless frame rate, whether you're gaming for 20 minutes or 2 hours. I basically played until I started to go cross-eyed, and I didn't see any dips in the frame rate, not even when those visuals were boosted to the highest possible settings. And likewise, having a good old go on Call of Duty Mobile was actually quite a good time. And I'm saying that as a grumpy old git who's absolutely sick of having his nads blasted off by annoying school kids on their summer holidays. This thing's so good that I even got MVP in some of the games, which is a rarity to say the least. And yes, Sony's thermal coolant does the job nicely as well. The Xperia 1 Mark VII does get a wee bit warm when gaming, especially around the edges of the camera bump, but it's really no big deal. And also, Sony serves up one of the most feature-packed gaming modes of any smartphone out there, with the exception of dedicated gaming handsets like the ROG phones. You've got everything you need on here to fine-tune the gaming experience. You can even record it or live stream if that's what you're into. I might have been quite good in Call of Duty with the Xperia, but not that good. However, no upgrade for the Xperia 1 Mark VII when it comes to the battery tech. You've once again got a 5000 mAh capacity cell with rather lethargic 30-watt wired charging and 15-watt wireless charging. Thankfully, as it turns out, the Xperia 1 Mark VII doesn't need a bigger capacity battery because the battery life is bloody brilliant anyway. Even on the longest, most arduous of days with hours and hours of screen on time, plenty of camera action. I've been absolutely rinsing that camera the past couple of weeks. Plenty of video streaming, audio streaming, all the usual shenanigans. The lowest I ever managed to get that battery down in a single day was down to 25%, and more commonly it typically ended around the sort of 30 to 35% mark. And as I say, that is with a good bit of camera action as well. If you take it a bit easier on the Xperia 1 Mark VII, you should be able to make it through a full weekend without needing to recharge it. And even if you're gaming on Wuthering and Waves non-stop on the highest possible graphics settings with Sony's gaming performance modes enabled as well, you'll still get 4.5 hours of gaming good times before that battery is fully drained. Now, why not? Let's end this lovely Sony Xperia 1 Mark 7 review with a squint at the camera tech. And Sony has chosen to stick with the same main and telephoto sensors as the previous generation. So that main 24mm shooter uses the 52meg Exmor-T sensor 1/1.35, while you've also got yourself a 12meg Exmor-RS sensor 1/3.5 for the telephoto shooter, with an equivalent focal length between 85 and 170 mils. However, the ultra-wide sensor has actually been swapped out for this generation, replaced with a larger 50meg Exmor-RS effort 1/1.56, which is certainly an improvement for those ultra-wide shots. And of course, yes, Sony has once again slapped its dedicated shutter button here on the edge of the Xperia 1 Mark 7, which is ideal when you are snapping away. Significantly better than what you'll find on that iPhone TOSP, just because of the beautiful positioning, nice and comfortable to use. And the Xperia 1 Mark 7 is certainly capable of pumping out great looking pics with effective depth and moody contrast. However, as usual, it's not as reliable on the full auto mode as some flagship rivals, so you will of course have to embrace the DSLR style manual controls if you want to really get the best out of this slinky shooter. And this is an area where Sony still kind of rules the roost, although pretty much every other smartphone now also comes with a feature-packed Pro mode. It's just that Sony lays theirs out in a style that should feel familiar to DSLR users. So the transition from camera to smartphone certainly a lot more natural. The Xperia's upgraded ultra-wide shooter works beautifully when you need it, packing the photo with finer detail and often actually spaffing out a more natural looking pic than the Exmor-T sensor. It's certainly an effective update and I really enjoyed playing around with it. Meanwhile, that telephoto lens works fine as long as the conditions are good, but it can be a major letdown. Any kind of motion usually gives you blurry results, and it really struggles at night in particular, churning out noisy, flat, grim looking images. And while you can use it for telemacro shots, you will need a supremely steady hand. In fact, I'd say almost superhumanly steady, because the depth of field on the manual focus is almost comedically shallow. And oh yes, Sony couldn't resist absolutely pumping that camera full of AI juice, including some AI eye tracking. Not that I had any troubles on that front with earlier Xperia flagships, but while the Xperia 1 Mark 7 can track faces like a pro, quite a lot of my portrait shots were a bit on the janky side, shall we say, whether my subject was on the move or completely still. And as with the photo shenanigans, you've got yourself a regular video mode, and also, if you flip all the way down to the bottom, a pro video mode. And with both modes, you can boost the resolution to 4K and can bump up the frame rate up to 120 frames per second at that Ultra HD level if you like to mess around with slow motion shenanigans in the edit. And as with the photo capture, I did find that the video results for the Xperia 1 Mark 7 could be really good, and they could also be a wank sandwich. And so for instance, zooming while recording is usually anything but a smooth affair. It can be quite juddery, and occasionally when I shifted to the telephoto lens while recording, that frame rate suddenly plummeted, as if I was watching a flipbook animation or something. But you do also get a handful of pretty cool features, including the AI camera work mode, which helps to keep your moving subject nice and central and offers boosted stabilization so you can move and shoot without worrying too much about the tracking or your footage being a shaky bag of vomit-inducing garbage. You've also got AI auto-framing, which can crop right in so your subject fills the screen. And this actually saves 2 copies of the video as well. You've got the original that you shot, and then you've got the zoomed in AI-led affair, which as you can see tracks and zooms as you're shooting. And hey, if you happen to be one of us creator type knobheads, well, good news. Sony's product showcase mode is back on board, forcing the camera to focus on any objects you're holding instead of desperately trying to lock onto your mug. And again, for any willing content creators out there, Sony has slapped its Creators app onto the Xperia 1 Mark 7. Just makes it that much easier to remote control your DSLR or get all of your images, videos, etc. onto the smartphone ready for editing. And oh yes, naturally can't forget that 12 megapixel selfie camera, which again can record you at up to 4K resolution, and this is absolutely fine for a bit of vlogging on the go, or again, you're snapping photos of your face, you want to upload those for the internet so people can remember what you look like. And that right there in a tasty wee nutshell, my lovelies, is the Sony Xperia 1 Mark VII. And once again in 2025, Sony is delivering some brilliant features that you simply won't find on other flagship devices. Things like the headphone jack, the expandable storage, the front firing speakers, and that gorgeous full view finish for the display. Not to mention some pretty bloody cracking battery life and excellent gaming performance. So it's just a massive shame then that the Xperia 1 Mark VII is so prohibitively expensive, especially as there's not really enough of an evolution here over the previous generation. And of course, once again, Sony appears to have completely scrapped the Xperia 5 model, which I always preferred because it's a bit more compact and also more affordable. Anyway, that's enough of this haggard, hungover old cretin banging on. Be great to hear what you reckon of the Xperia 1 Mark VII down in the comments below. Are you tempted to buy one? Do you actually have the money to buy one? If you do, don't forget your Uncle Spurt loves you very much. Please send me cash. Please do book, subscribe, ding that old notifications bell, and have yourselves a ruddy, wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everybody, love you.